distribute accordingly, rather than us sending that, multiple times. But anyway, so um,
So on this one, if I can make a suggestion, because we've had two of these classes already, right? Um, Trey, if you want to start from the top down, uh, basically, a condensed version, and then um, what we can do is we can have Shito's group go over the videos like our group has been doing, for reference, and then by the next class, if there's any hiccups or anything like that, then we'll have we'll have better questions, as opposed to trying to get some of the little bugs figured out and stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds good. No problem. So should I start with like the setup and the menu docking and that stuff?
I think some of the menu docking and all that stuff, we can skip over. That's the stuff that I'm referring to. That we can go back and look at the videos, because I know myself as I was actually looking at them right now during my lunch hour. So that's some of the stuff that we can look back and get back in our own time for the sake of time progression. So just the main functions. Let's put the file path together. The files. Let's go ahead and put the 10 files in. Create the corridor model. So that we're basically at the same point we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And then start moving forward from there.
Yes, Trey. Let's try to do that in a condensed version, so we can actually cover what we were intending to cover today. Again, we have a fairly large group today. 10 to 12 people in the call. We've been going over these. We'll send those videos. You guys can look at them, and next time we meet, I believe it's Thursday, this coming Thursday. So we'll go back and refresh that as after you study the first two sessions. If there's any questions or anything, we can address those and get you, up to speed on everything that we have. With that being said, Trey, I'll get quiet and you go ahead and do your lesson. Thanks.
Sounds good. So real quick, should I start with terrain models? Is that where a good place to start would be?
I think so, Trey.
Okay, sounds good. So let me share my screen. Okay. So what we talked about in the first two sessions was, first we started out with menu docking, and you can go back and watch the first video for that. And then we went right into creating terrain models. And this is a very important piece of information that we need in order to be able to see the existing ground on our alignments, and for our corridor to be able to see how the end conditions are work, and how the proposed roadway is tying into existing ground. So in a condensed version, here is where you will here's how you'll start a project, is by first developing the terrain file, and so you're going to use create from file, and the file types that this command reads is TIN and XML. Those are the main ones that it reads. So I'm just gonna map to my TIN file, and I'll just pick section 2. And here you have the option of picking a feature definition, and this determines how the terrain model gets displayed. And in this case, I'll just use existing contours. I usually use existing boundary, existing triangles, or existing contours. So you can use any of these, and whichever one you prefer, you can use those. So I'll go ahead and import this. And once this is done, you can do a fit screen. And okay, come on. And now we can see that we have our terrain model in here. And this is all based on the 10 that was provided by for this project. So if I wanted to create a complex terrain, I will use complex terrain model. I'll make sure all the terrains that I have are imported into this file. And you'll have multiple terrains here. Then you're gonna add them over. You'll say add, and then so this one will be, the first one will automatically default to primary. You'll keep that there. You'll add the next one, and then you'll say append. When we're making a complex terrain of the existing ground, it's going to always be append. And then you will come here to the feature definition and click whichever definition you want. And you'll name it, and then you'll hit finish, and then you'll get a terrain that is complex and that includes the entire limits of your project. And so once you have that complex terrain, you would, or what I would do is I would export it, so you can have that. And so this would be the file that you would export, right? And the way you do that is you can click on this terrain, and you can come to export terrain model, and then you'll pick which output file you want it to go to, or you can come over here and do the same thing. And the reason I would create a complex terrain of the whole project is to be able to clip it, which is using this function, create clip terrain models, because we want to split up our projects, or split up our corridor limits so that the software can run efficiently, and so that it won't take as much time. Because if we were to run a corridor throughout this entire project, it would take a lot of time processing, just because the computer has to solve a whole bunch of cases. So once you have your complex terrain, you can clip the terrain in to match the corridor limits, so that will reduce the processing time, which is what we want. So quickly, to create a clip terrain, we can come here and make the shape that you want. And this can be using this block command, or you could even make a smart line if you wanted to. So I can demonstrate this. We can come here and say, right, you make your shape where you want your clip terrain, right? And let's just say that this is going to be our corridor starts at the beginning of this terrain model and it ends here. So we only want this file or this area as a terrain. So then we're going to use, in the terrain model tab, we'll use create clipped terrain model. We're going to locate the reference terrain and then make sure you have this window up so you can see. And then you'll give it whatever name you want. And in this case, I'll do existing triangles so we can see the contrast. And you have two options for the clipping method. It's going to be external or internal. So if you use external, then anything outside of your boundary will not be in your terrain. So then I'm going to locate the clipping element, reset. And when it says reset, when the software says reset, I can go back. This is pretty important because it happens a lot with the software. But okay, so this asks me to locate the terrain model element, and then it says locate clipping element. Then it says locate next clipping element, reset when done. So you're going to see this reset when done a lot, and when it is, or when you do see it, and when you are done with the command, then you're going to make sure to right click, and then that's when it knows that you're done and you're out of that prompt. So then we'll left click through the command, and here you see that we have our existing clipped terrain model. And if you go to Project Explorer, just something that I covered in the first session, you can see that we have two terrain models now when we only had one at the beginning. Okay, so now I'm gonna jump into how to create horizontal alignments. So I'll just start here. So when you want to create a horizontal alignment using this software, you're going to use align between points is one command that you can use. And then, but one thing that's really important is that you have these chain commands toggled on, right? And you can get to this quickly by doing the feature definition toggle bar. If you click this, then this little bar will come up. Then you can dock it. And so once you have this basically means when I click and create a line, then it's not going to end the command. It's gonna keep it going, right? So if I turn it off, then if I click again, then it stops. So it's really efficient to have this chain command on, and be sure to always pick the feature definition. You can either pick it here, or if you have it selected on the feature definition toggle bar, then you can, as long as this light bulb is on, then it'll use active feature definition. So when I turn it off, it goes away. Turn it back on, it's there, right? this software to create the line, to create our tangents and our um, points of intersection is what we'll do, and then we'll use the simple arc command to give us an arc for our horizontal alignment. And for some reason this is acting weird. But so basically, if you can see here, this command that I'm using, line between points, it gives you the option to choose a distance and to choose a direction. And this is the smart elements of the software, because if I wanted to change this, if I wanted to change the tangent length or the bearing, then I could just by typing it in. And so I just opened up a new file so we can be efficient with time. But to go back, if I use line between points and use the chain, okay, so if we choose the feature definition and we use line between points, and I'll turn this off so I can just draw a line, you can see that it has some it has these places where you can update this information. So if I wanted it to be 500, I can change that. If I wanted it to be 1,000, you can change that. And if you want to change the direction, you can. And in contrast, if I were to just draw a line here, and I click on it using the regular drawing commands, then I can't do that. But something that I didn't share with y'all in the first two sessions was, in general geometry, you can turn a dumb line into a smart line, which is by using create civil rule feature. So if you do that, use this command, then you locate the element and right click. It says reset to complete, so we're going to right click. Then back, we can see that it added the smart components to it. So this was a dumb line, and we just turned it into a smart line, and now have the control that we need. Right, so the other main functions here are the complex by VPI, and so we'll just enter our VPI locations and give the command our radius information, and it will create our horizontal geometry for that. And if we wanted to, if these PIs change for any reason, or if the radiuses need to be changed, then we can update this dynamically. And even these can be changed. And this is the way we want to do it because it limits the extra work that we would need to do if our lines were created, or if our alignments were created just by dumb lines. So I'm just going to start a new file, quick. And what I'm going to do is in the last session, session 2, I showed you how to import the geometry from a GPK. But let's say for some reason you didn't have the GPK, but you had the alignment file, and you had all of the line work associated to that alignment, right? So here I'm just going to reference the alignment. And here it is. So the way I would do this, if I'm going to create this alignment, if I didn't have the GPK and I needed to create a 3D model for this project, what I would do is, so we have a reference here, right? But what I want to do is I want to turn off everything that isn't the alignment, and then I'm going to let's turn off these two, and then I'm going to merge this file into master. So what this does is when you merge into master, it makes the reference go away, and it merges the line work in the reference to your file. So now it's live in the file. But if you see here, there's no information for this alignment, or any smart information, which is what you would expect, right? But if you do the create civil rule feature on this alignment, then we can see that we have all this information now. And now all we need to do is we have our alignment. Now we come over here and give it stationing. And this is the information, the correct information for this alignment. Now, when we click and hover and we open the profile model, we're able to see that this alignment starts at 875. And just for the people that are joining us for the first time today, the black, when you're in a profile view, the black is the tangents, and the kind of gray blue is the curves. So I think it's really helpful to know where you are. So this is what that means. And so I'm gonna go back and let's see. So let's say your alignment that you want to make a complex, or you want to create horizontal alignment for your project, but let's say that your tangents and curves are not already complex like this. So I'm going to drop this, and then now we can see that they're all segments. All right. So what I would do in this case is I would either select from attributes here, which would be geometry center line, and then I can go ahead and use the create civil rule feature. And now we have all this information, and all we need to do is come to horizontal geometry tab and do complex by elements, and then we'll give it a name, and then we'll make sure that this is the direction of our of increasing station, and then we'll see that now we have another way to get to a complex horizontal alignment without a GPK. Right, and if you wanted to import this to a GPK, then you would come here, well, actually export to a GPK, then you would come to export to native, and you click on the alignment, and it'll, if your project manager is set up correctly, then it'll list different GPKs that are in your working directory of your project manager, and you can press OK, and then it'll export to this GPK, and then you'll be able to it'll be able to be stored. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see.
Hey, Trey, excuse me, I interrupt. Does anyone have any questions this far? Okay, keep going, Trey.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, for some reason, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to import this horizontal geometry. And so this would be the way to import the horizontal geometry if you had a GPK. So you import geometry, then you click, you map to your GPK, and then you'll click on it, and it'll give you the options, and these are your horizontal alignments. And if you click on the profile, or if you click the plus, then you can see the profiles that are associated to the GPK. But be careful, because if you just come here and click on these horizontal alignments, then it'll bring all the profiles, which might not be what you want. So in this case, I'll just pick the horizontal for, actually it's this one, 67 center line. And then, so now we have our alignment imported from the GPK. Then I'm going to reference so I'm gonna use the segment 1 terrain, and we're gonna see how to create a profile in this area. So here are the limits for segment 1, and if you go into the profile view of this horizontal alignment, we can see that even though we have our terrain in this file, we're not able to visually see any terrain in the profile view, and that's because the terrain model needs to be set active, right? And to do that, you just click on it, click on the terrain model, click and hover, and then say set as active terrain. So now we can see that this is our terrain in this segment, in this section of the alignment. So now we can go into the profile model, and we can use the vertical geometry tab to see or to create our profiles, right? So this is the existing ground that we're seeing at the horizontal alignment of our center line. And to start, I would use the line between points and the parabola between elements. And this vertical geometry tab and horizontal geometry tab, they're pretty much close to being the same. So they have mostly the same functions and the same use, except one's horizontal and one's vertical. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and start by using the line between points. Then it's going to give you this information. And one thing to be aware of is the profiles are based off element templates, and the horizontal elements are based off feature definitions. So really most of them should be the same, but it can get confusing when thinking about feature definitions versus element templates. But as long as you know to pick an element template when you're creating a profile, then that's basically what you need to know, that you're going to pick geometry vertical. This is the main one that I use when I'm creating profiles, but there's other element templates that you can use if you're doing other things in profiles, which is we can see some of the cool things that this software can do, and I'll show you how to do those in the profile view. So in this case, I'll get started. I guess I didn't pick element template yet. So I'll choose geometry vertical. And another thing is, if you come to your Civil AccuDraw, which you can get to by doing Tools, Civil AccuDraw, activate toolbar, then docket. If you have the Civil AccuDraw on, then you can see that my command knows the exact station and elevation of our cursor, and we can use this to lock in and key in elevations. So if I wanted to say 875, we're gonna match existing, so it's gonna be at 4760, and I come to this, to about this PI here. Let's say it's 879 at 4756. Then these can all be keyed in, and make sure to have your chain command on. And then you click, and then you come over here to 18. So here are the VPIs that I just created, right? And these can be, I guess I'll go ahead and create a vertical curve for here, or for this vertical point of intersection. And we can just name, I like to keep it at some kind of generic value, because the name of our profile segments don't really matter. The only thing that matters and what gets exported to the GPK is the complex itself, right? So in this case, I'll use the parabola between elements, and so I'll just pick the first element, pick the second element, and then I can key in a vertical curve length. And let's see what happens when I do that. So if I click on the curve, I see that there's a 450, which is the length that I gave, and then there's another number below it. Can someone tell me what that number is? What this number represents? Okay, so this number here, this is the K value. So depending on your design speed, depends on which K value you should use. So if for some reason it's 150, then you can see that you can automatically change the K value and your length of curve gets updated. And the cool thing about this is if you lock in a K value, right? So we have 100, and if we change our back and forward grades, if they get steeper, then this grade will actually get, or this length of curve will actually get longer too. And the opposite will happen if they get shallower. So let's demonstrate that here. So if I go, so our curve is 485, around 485, and if I change this to -3, it should get bigger than 485. And that's exactly what happens here. So this is really cool and helpful when you're designing, because there's really no, or it limits the chance of error when not meeting your K values. But the other thing to be aware of is if you key in a length, so let's say if I key in 500, or let's just do key in 510, which meets our 100 K value for this road. If I key this in and I change the grade and make it steeper, either grade, and make it 3.5, then this length doesn't change in the K value, but the K value gets updated. So you really need to be aware that whichever value you key in is the value that's going to stay, or the value that's going to, it's the value that's going to control. So it's really important. So once you create your VPIs and all your tangents and curves, then you'll want to create a profile here, and you're going to do that with profile complex by elements. So we can just say P for now, and it's the same as the horizontal. So you'll pick the direction of increasing, and then if you have it on automatic, then it'll pick that for you. And here you go, here's your profile. And this can be updated too. So once you have your profile set, you can, or one thing that you'll need to do in order for the I guess let's come over here and check something real quick. So if I hover this horizontal alignment, you can see that it says complex element and it gives the name, and then it says no active profile. So this is the key when working with the software, right? Because I can, if I come here and click on our profile that we just created, we can say there's a command for set as active profile. And this is what we need to do, because this is how the template will know which geometry to follow. Because you could technically have it match existing as long as this existing ground is set active. So now if I come here and hover, we can see that our active profile is this P5 complex that I just chose. So now you know how to create a profile, but I'm going to show you. So for the horizontal, there was a complex by PI, and for the vertical, there's also a complex by PI, which is what I try to use most of the time. So you can come here and have your curved length and your K values are here. So how this works is you'll choose a station, or you'll choose a location of your VPIs, and I really like to try to make it a habit to key in the station and elevation, just because it makes the software more friendly to work with. Because so let me just do an example of why I would like to key it in, key the stations of my VPIs in, and so I'll just say that this is going to be 875. I'm just going to do some random points. Then we can compare what happens to the different methods that I draw a profile. So we'll say this is at 4625. So this is the station and offset of my first point. Then I'll come here and go to X. I'll give it whatever length. And again. So we'll just keep it at that. Let me make this. So this is a profile created by Profile Complex by VPI, and I keyed in these stations and elevations. So if I were to change one of these elevations, right, if I were to make this 4650, then you see that both grades get updated and these VPIs don't change, which I feel like it's the best workflow to use, because sometimes you do want to keep these VPIs, and if you do not key in the station and elevation of your VPIs, then what will happen is if one of these change, then it doesn't get updated. So if I were to change this grade here to 2, well, I guess it did. Let me see. For some reason, I thought it wouldn't, but it did. So let's see if I. Yeah, no, I guess it does work. So maybe it's just using the profile line between points. So, but this is the main command that you want to be using, the profile complex by VPI when creating profiles. So for now, these are the main the commands that I've showed you for the profile are the main ones that we use. And let's see. So I think, let's see. So we only have about 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a right-of-way file, which is something that we need to tell our corridor what to target, the geometry. We're going to create the geometry that's going to target the corridor so we know where to tie in. And so I'm going to create a new file and then we can do that. So come here, workshop. So I'm just going to reference in the right of way, or that's the wrong file. So I'll go back, reference in our right of way, line work. So here it is. And I'm going to use the exact same workflow to create this right-of-way geometry that I did to create the horizontal geometry for our center line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge this file into master. Now these elements are inside this file. Then I will, you can even select them all instead of selecting by attributes. So then I'll do create civil rule feature, and then I'll use geometry right of way. And then I believe, let me rotate this. But how I like to do it is I like to name the right of way left and right from the center line. So if we come here and complex by elements, then we can just say and then we'll select our element and make sure it goes all the way, and then do the same thing for. So this is something that you're going to need for every project. You're going to need the right of way, you're going to need the existing terrain, and if you see on here, this is why you should check to see if your geometry connects all the way to the end, because sometimes if it's not connected somewhere, then it won't go all the way. So in this case, I'll just connect these lines, and then I'll do it again. And then I'm going to reference in the combined terrain file, because what we need to do is we're gonna apply the existing ground to this right of way so that our corridor can reference it when we get to applying the corridor and applying the template, which what we'll get to next, the first or the start of the next session. So once this loads, then we can see that this terrain goes all the way, or close all the way. Then we'll set this active, set our combined active, and then we'll come to the profile view of our left right of way, and we see that our terrain is here. So then we'll make sure to set profile as active. And what's cool about this too is if I made this, or I kind of modified this feature definition to show a little call out at the that has like an arrow and then it has right of way on top to show when we're looking at the cross sections. And I can show you that next session whenever we get there. But so to recap, the main elements that you're going to need when you're creating cross sections and when you're creating a 3D model for any project is going to be the horizontal, vertical geometry of your center line. You're going to need the right of way, horizontal and vertical, which is just the horizontal and the existing ground of the right of way. You're going to need the tin for the project, and you're going to need the typical section for the project. And this is our typical section for this project, and we'll get to creating the template next week. And that's all I have for today. Does anyone have any questions?
Trey, I got one question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what if we have an alignment and we want to do a best fit alignment? Is there a feature that you can show us how to do that to the existing one, or you already did that?
Yeah, there is a function for best fit, and I can go over that first thing next session.
Okay.
Yes, I'll write that down.
And I'm glad you bring that up, Chito,
Okay.
because that kind of brings me to my next topic. Just because of the fact that we covered so much material on this one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look into adding at least one more session, and that'll help us address any questions that come up. And like I said, we'll see it as we go through. If we need more sessions, and we'll work that out with Rafael's team, and get that going. So, feel free to ask as much as you guys need. These guys are a huge resource to us, and we need to tap into it.
Yep, that's I have sent already an updated schedule. So just going over what I see in my calendar, our next session will be the 24th, which is Thursday at 9:30 El Paso time. The following will be the 28th at 1 p.m. After that one will be October 1st at 9:30. And then I'm skipping that following Monday the 5th because I want to give you time to practice. and the one we just added was the October 8th at 9:30 El Paso time. Uh, on that day, we'll decide, if we need to add one or two more, or if we're good. And, I mean, the goal here is, we feel, El Paso District's being good to us, so it's time for us to be good to El Paso District. We're helping you guys in whichever way we can. And, uh, this is really your time to learn and ask us questions, because, I mean, if all the projects go well, everybody is good, So anyway, any questions at this moment on anything that has been discussed to date? Okay, we'll reconvene on the 24th, this coming Thursday, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you so much, Umberto, for inviting us, and we'll continue learning
No,
Yes.
and
absolutely.
asking lots of questions.
No problem. And Trey, if you don't mind, prepare the script, send it my way, or send it directly to Humberto so we can get those Humberto to Sheetal's group and everybody else in this other design group at the district.
Sounds good. I'll get that ready.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
See
you
you.
Thank
all.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.